knight f6, which is definitely not as popular as bishop c5, but definitely the main alternative to mention bishop c5. After knight f6, we might expect a little bit more double-edged play, especially if white plays knight g5. And definitely this is the move that should be covered first of all, and the players should see whether those kind of positions are appealing to them. So black has to react with a pawn sacrifice. It's well known, but not in everyone's taste. That's obviously clear. But this position after e d5, knight a5, bishop b5, so that's practically the fourth sequence of moves. Here we basically black sacrifice pawn, but in return they get a lot of activity. Well, it's also very concrete theory, so here you need to study like very well, move by move, otherwise you might just end up being pawned down. Also, knight on a5 is not amazingly placed, at least for now. So I covered here different moves. It's actually in my most comprehensive file. I have all 4 possible options covered here. It's bishop e2, queen f3, bishop a4. I just want to highlight a spectacular line after bishop d3. After bishop d3, my choice is knight d5, attacking white knight on g5, as well as heading to f4 in some lines. The most fashionable lines nowadays is h4. Of course, well-known alternative is knight f3. Then we have a little bit more positional approach, playing just bishop d6, castle, followed up by knight f4. After h4, the idea that we just continue like quick development. This is very important in this line, otherwise our compensation is questionable. After bishop c5, queen f3, that's the main idea of h4. Basically he's targeting f7 pawn, as well as we cannot castle because in this case h7 is hanging. So the solution for black is to play amazing f5, bishop f5 and castle. So what we get for 2 sacrifice pawns, actually 3, it's like initiative over f-file. So the queen is hanging as well as the pawn on f2. A pretty forced line here. Knight f7, rook f7, queen f7, and very important move knight f4. Otherwise, after king h7, d3, white is able to consolidate, and actually white has material advantage and probably better in this position. So after the right move knight f4 with idea bishop e6, white practically forced to force trade, and we regain some of the material. We probably, if we count like pawn wise, white is still a little bit up, but we have a lot of initiative. Our piece is much more active, no doubts about this, and it's a very excited position with black having some interesting ideas. Maybe even objectively equal, but it's much easier to play for black. So this is the line that knight g5 has to be studied, of course. So this is one of the most fascinating lines in this knight g5 that I decided to highlight. So instead of knight g5, we have definitely d4, so-called Scotch gambit, d4, e4, e5, well-known line. So black has to respond d5. I guess like many of the players who like study the theory a little bit, they know this kind of like reaction for black in typical positions here. After bishop b5, knight a4, knight d4, I'm also coming with a little bit surprising, but it's once again, it's not top choice, but rather a second choice, bishop c5, targeting f2 pawns and not wasting time for much more popular bishop d7. After bishop c5, I wanted to show you just one amazing line, and it's kind of like tactical justification for this, for bishop c5 being like a reliable idea for black. After knight c6, we capture on f2, king f1, b takes c6, bishop c6, king f8. So please pay attention. Our rook is untouchable in view of bishop a6 threat. So the best move for white in this position to play queen d3. Queen h4. So we have no time for rook b8. So we need to bring more pieces towards white king and have initiative. So after queen h4, bishop a8 actually doesn't work. It's not a good move, but this is the only move that has been played so far. So here a brilliant refutation. It's unbelievable line. So I guess like you're gonna enjoy the final position. So we play bishop d4. So there is a threat queen f2, as well as queen d4 impossible, because after bishop a6 king g1, queen e1, the game is over, it's mate. So after bishop e3, knight c5, the whole point, amazing move, not so easy to see, but the preparation for bishop a6 appears to be deadly for white. After queen d2, once again queen d4 loses to bishop a6, we still give check and king g1, and here's the move that I really enjoy to show, queen f4. So the pin all over, like white pinned all over, and basically it's over. So this is the line, bishop c5. Very excited to introduce my bishop c5 line. Of course, white can play better. White is not worse objectively speaking after bishop c5, but that's a very tricky move, and there are like many possibilities for white to go wrong, and black can get advantage with very precise play. So d3 is so-called slow Italian. Now in this case, well known that black can play bishop c5, bishop e7, a well-known main alternative, but I'm coming with h6. It's a little bit more aggressive. I find it's quite interesting. I was actually surprised to find over 5,000 games in this position. We also can find some GM games, including top-level grandmasters such as Mamedjarov, Morozevich, and so on. So the whole point is, first of all, to cover g5 and then have possibility to play g5 ourselves. So one line that I would like to introduce here is, we first start with d6, c3, like, well, you probably notice I covered a lot of moves here, but that's like the main line, the most popular. After c3, we play g5. So we potentially can start the attack. But, so for instance, you can see after rook e1, I'll just go aggressive with attacking possibilities. Why it's allowed? Because black kind of flexible and actually can castle queenside in this position, or maybe keep the king in the center for time being. So this is one line. Now after knight d2, somehow g4 is not working as well as after rook e1, because e1 is, I guess, convenient square, and then knight can go to c2 and eventually e3, f5. So here we play bishop g7, and it's very important to understand, after we play g5, it doesn't mean that we can play just a regular positional game. We can develop normally. So bishop b3, castle, and we just have a normal game. Actually, our king side is not weakened much, so we just have just normal positional fight. Obviously, the main idea to play d5 at some point in the center. By the way, instead of castle, there is something more interesting, maybe more aggressive. Knight is heading to f4, and potentially maybe we can prepare queenside castle after this. So here's some highlights of the line